A schmuck named Nietzsche once wrote, "Anything done out of love is beyond good and evil." Now, here's the thing. I love my job. So what does that make me?
The Invisible Man. When people hear this, many think of the H.G. Wells novel or the 1933 movie based off the novel. But before I read the book or saw the film, I was a fan of the TV show. There have been a few shows called The Invisible Man throughout the years, but the one I want to focus on is the 2000 TV series I watched as a kid. Growing up, I didn't have cable, and so I had to make do with the shows that were shown on the major networks, WB, Fox, and UPN. In addition to classic shows such as Doug and Boy Meets World, I often watch primetime shows on UPN, such as Enterprise and Special Unit 2, and I'll get to that one later. The Invisible Man follows Darian Fox, a con man and cat burglar who is caught in the middle of a job. He's sentenced to life in prison, but is approached by his brother Kevin. Now Kevin is a brilliant scientist working on a top-secret government project, and offers to cut Darian a deal. He can either sit in prison for the rest of his life, or serve as a guinea pig for his brother's project. Despite his reservations, Darian realizes that his only chance at freedom is to accept his brother's proposal, and he agrees to take part in his brother's experiments. His brother has designed a gland called the Quicksilver gland, which secretes a chemical which makes the subject turn invisible. He implants the gland in Darian's brain, and Darian gains the ability to make himself turn invisible. As Darian trains and learns to use the gland, not only does he learn to turn invisible at will, which is known as quicksilvering, but he also learns to project quicksilver onto external objects, meaning that he can turn other objects and even other people invisible for short periods of time. However, the gland comes with an unfortunate and unforeseen side effect: quicksilver madness. It's caused by a buildup of quicksilver in the brain and forces Darian into a frenzy, in which he forgoes rational thought and follows his base instincts. Eventually, it results in death. A top member of Kevin's scientific team, Arnaud, develops a counteragent which resets the damage done by quicksilver madness and returns Darian to normal. But it's only a temporary fix and requires regular injections. Darian doesn't completely trust Arnaud and catches him red-handed stealing information on the project. Arnaud knocks himself out and blames the break-in on Darian to cover up his own tracks. It turns out that he's a rogue scientist looking to steal the project and sell it to the highest bidder. Realizing that his plan has been compromised, and that Darian knows the truth about him, Arnaud calls in his brother and the rest of his team and takes information on the Quicksilver project by force, killing Kevin in the process. Darian escapes the facility and swears to avenge his brother's death. Arnaud, on the other hand, doesn't get all the data from the project and is unable to recreate the gland without retrieving the gland from Darian. This sets up the main conflict for the series, as Darian seeks to avenge his brother's death, and Arnaud seeks to kill Darian and retrieve the gland. Darian is picked up by the Agency, the government organization sponsoring the Quicksilver project. They need Darian's help to find Arnaud before he sells the Quicksilver project to a terrorist organization, and in return, they offer to supply him with counteragent. Once again, Darian doesn't have much of a choice, and reluctantly agrees to work for the Agency. He's paired with the obnoxious and street-smart Bobby Hobbs, an Agency veteran who constantly complains about his lack of pay and underappreciation within the Agency. While Hobbs and Fox become good friends and learn to trust each other as brothers, Hobbs is always a bit jealous of the attention Darian receives, and constantly tries to serve as the leader in their partnership. Darian, on the other hand, thinks Hobbs is a bit hot-headed, and sees himself as the leader and the voice of reason within their partnership. This creates a hilarious dynamic, where Hobbs and Fox are working together, but also working to one-up each other. And this leads to many hilarious arguments and disagreements between the two. Watching Hobbs and Fox interact is one of the main draws of the show. It's hilarious to see them bicker like an old married couple, but at the end of the day, they're still best friends. Another enemy comes into play around the end of the first season. Chrysalis, a secretive and sinister organization, develops an interest in Darian and retrieving the gland. So not only do we have Arnaud looking to sell the gland for profit, but we also have Chrysalis looking to implement the gland in their plans for world domination. The series culminates as the science department at the Agency cures Quicksilver madness and frees Darian from his need for counteragent. No longer having anything to tie him to the Agency, Darian leaves, but once again is sucked back in because of the threat Chrysalis poses. Unfortunately, the series only ran for 2 seasons and was cancelled just when things were getting good. Darian was closing in on Arnaud, and the apocalyptic plans of Chrysalis were coming to fruition. At the end of Season 2, I was dying to see what happened next. Unfortunately, the network didn't share my enthusiasm and prematurely pulled the plug. The Invisible Man was the perfect blend of science fiction and buddy cop action, and it was a shame to see it go. Not only did it hook viewers with its plot and hilarious characters, but it also paid homage to its roots. I learned about the Invisible Man film from this show, which is referenced in not only the opening credits, but also throughout the series. Not only that, but behind all the humor is an intelligent show that examines the moral gray area between good and evil. Darian is constantly battling with himself and ultimately seeks to return to his lifestyle of crime. But the only way he can get there is through a career in crime fighting. The anti-hero has been done before, but Darian Fox puts a hilarious and refreshing twist on the concept, and you really get to see the good underneath his exterior. The Invisible Man was one of the first shows I watched on a regular basis to see what happened next, and to this day, I would still like to see how Darian and the agency deal with the threat that Chrysalis poses. And if Darian ever catches Arno. For fans of sci-fi, this is a show I highly recommend. It featured a good cast of characters and an intricate plot, which really draws you into the world of Darian Fox. Check it out.
If it isn't, then we know the leak is legit, eh?
Wait a minute, I'm sorry, could you just back up for a second? Since when did falling into a chrysalis trap count as a win?
Sacrifice for one's own country always counts as a win in the book of Bobby Hobbs.
That'll be a bestseller.
Yep.
Yeah, I've learned a lot of things since I started working with Bobby Hobbs.